Hey guys, how are we going? So today we're going to be doing some practical foundations. So we're going to be moving around the kitchen a little bit and showing you the basics of perishable items, where they're stored and stuff. We're going to be doing some knife skills, precision cuts and so forth. I'm going to show you how to wash your hands properly, how to put things away, making sure how to clean. We're going to show you how to clean the kitchen correctly and stuff. Some of the things to look out for, like broken containers or buckets, or when people or delivery drivers deliver you broken goods, what to do, and procedures to follow in obtaining a credit note or a replacement product. We're just going to move over here and wash our hands, and I'll show you how to wash your hands. But just first of all, you can see my little kitchen area here. I've got my chopping board, I've got my knives and my tools all set up. I've got my stone and my steel. So we've got our bucket here with our tongs and our spoons and our equipment in hot water to keep your tools nice and clean all the time. Obviously, when that water gets dirty, then you can just go replace it throughout your service period. Okay, got our oven here, our stove top's relatively clean and so forth, ready to go. So we're just going to move over to the sink over there, and I'll show you how to wash your hands. This is the correct way to wash your hands before any service period. Obviously, in between breaks, smoking or taking meal breaks, you should always wash your hands when you come back to the kitchen to do your work. If you go to the toilet, then obviously you have to come back, wash your hands again, just following procedures. So basically, rinse our hands with hot water. Every kitchen should have a wash basin, okay? We apply some soap. We lather up our hands correctly, okay, all the way up, okay? Make sure your nails are nice and nicely cut so you don't have long nails, because dirt can get stuck in your nails and then contaminate food. Okay, once you're all lathered up and ready, push the button, wash your hands properly. Okay, wash all the soap off. Okay, and then use a disposable cloth. Okay, never use tea towels. Okay, so tea towels are only used for handling hot items and so forth. Okay, they can harbour a lot of bacteria when left damp, left sitting on benches and so forth. So that's an absolute no-no to dry your hands with a tea towel. Okay, and then straight in the bin. Here we have our fridge. Okay, our cool room, so to speak. Okay, so we have to make sure our temperature, see, it's at 5.9 degrees because I've been opening the doors, so that's not really acceptable. So the fridge should be running at between 0 and 5 degrees, and obviously that temperature will settle down. But basically, we want to store eggs in the fridge. We would store our eggs down the bottom, so if there's any breakages or anything, you don't want cracked shells or eggs on other food items. All right, so it's always best to keep your eggs in the box down the bottom. Okay, here we have some dairy products, some butter and so forth, fruit and vegetables all in a container, segregated. Okay, so we talked about food segregation and all of that in earlier units, in theory and so forth. Okay, pretty empty fridge at the moment. We're still waiting on the delivery. Okay, and obviously you would store your seafood and your meats or poultry on the bottom shelf, because we know that we store ready to eat foods that are ready to be consumed by customers on the top shelf. Reason being, you don't want seafood or meat or blood or anything dripping onto food and contaminating it. So seafood and meats always on the bottom shelf. Here we have a classic example of delivery of items. So we have a bucket jar of jam which was delivered, and it fell on the floor, okay, and it cracked and it smashed. So this is a really good example what happens when delivery drivers have accidents. So this needs to be written up in your food safety program and in your paperwork. So upon delivery, you'll write a note on the invoice saying that the product was damaged on arrival, and then that will get returned to the supplier, and you will get a credit, and you'll clearly stipulate that on the invoice so other chefs know that that's what's happening, and you can arrange pickup of that, or if the driver's still around, then he or she can take it back, and then you'll get a brand new item in due course. This is example of a cool room, okay, and then the freezer is in here, okay. A little bit messy, but that's okay. Good to sort of know, okay. You know, your dairy product should be in one area, so you should be food segregating, like we talked about in the fridge earlier. You know, your eggs should be on the bottom, okay. Your dairy in one spot with your cheeses and so forth, okay. All your fruits and vegetables. But this is quite a tight cool room. Obviously, they vary in size, so you've just got to make do in circumstances. But it's very important to keep a nice tight ship, neat and tidy, okay? It's actually good that it's a little bit sort of skew because the guys are really busy. It's their first day back. So, yeah, we really need to come back in here and give it a proper clean, all right, and a proper organise. Okay, so we're in the dry store room here, okay? Just wanting to show you just putting things in its place, you know, putting all of your spices in the correct spot, all your sauces and so forth, sugars, beans and lentils, extra spices, and so forth, and making sure that everything is neat and tidy. It's relatively neat and tidy, but as we showed you in the photos just earlier, that is a really good example of how clean and tidy everything should be in its place, okay? Everything should be dated and labelled if it's open, okay? Obviously, products that aren't opened do have a use-by date on them, okay? So we have to make sure that those products are delivered within their use-by date, and obviously checking every week and making sure that nothing has surpassed its use-by date. And if it has surpassed its use-by date, well, we need to throw it out. We need to discard it, okay? Just making sure that things are all wrapped up and labelled and so forth. So the label is clearly here, okay, is shown, and making sure that products that are open should have a little sticky label on them with the product name, okay? When it was opened, okay, has a use-by date on it as well, okay. If it's prepped food, then obviously it needs a person's name on it as well, so we know who's accountable for it, okay. So we can go see that person, okay, if the date's not on there, if it's incorrect or there's something wrong with the item, we can hold someone accountable for it, and we can make sure that it doesn't happen again. Okay, so we've just moved out of the dry store, and I thought I'd just talk about the evacuation diagram that we have here. So this just shows you, an explanatory diagram how to evacuate the premises in case of a fire or an emergency, okay? Also, we have a first aid kit over here as well. We need to make sure that the first aid kit is all stocked correctly and there's nothing past its use-by date and so forth. So if there are any incidences where there are burns or cuts, we can attend to students correctly, make sure that they're safe and ready to go back to work, or if it's something more serious, then they would be sent home, okay? And obviously behind you, here is the fire escape. So in an emergency, students would move out through the fire escape in an orderly fashion, go down the stairs, okay? We don't have any lifts here, but you would never use a lift, okay, because that's not safe. And you would make your way, we'd do a head count, make sure everyone is present and out of the building, and then we would walk down to the muster area, which is just around the corner in the car park, and I would do another head count, make sure everyone is present. Once everyone's present, okay, then we would move back into the business when it was safe to do so. Really simple. Okay guys, so this is just another example of one of the kitchens that we use here at VIT. All right, it's a lot bigger. Okay, it probably we would probably have up to 16 students in here. Okay, working at every station. Okay, really clean kitchen. Okay, so everyone would have their own little working stations in here. There's a fridge over here as well. If there's anything that we need from the freezer or anything, we would obviously go downstairs. Okay, this is the kitchen where I work and instruct students. Yeah, it's not a bad layout. Pretty good to work in. Okay, welcome back. So now we're going to show you how to calibrate thermometers, which are very important to have around the kitchen. You should have at least 2 thermometers, as we've talked about in theory lessons. Okay, so if one breaks down, you've got another backup. Okay, EHOs, environmental health officers, when they come to inspect your business, they will ask you for your food safety program and so forth. They will ask you about whether you have thermometers on site so you can check the temperature of hot food, cold food, and so forth. You can use a laser thermometer as well to check the surface temperature of food when it gets delivered, okay, without having to puncture through food, as this thermometer does. This is used for checking the internal temperature of food, okay? But right now what we're going to do is we're going to show you 2 methods on how to calibrate the thermometer. Now, what that means is how we know it works and how we know it's working correctly and it's showing the correct temperature. So what I've got here, I've got a bowl. This is the ice slurry method, so cold water and ice, okay? It should be nice and cold, and we're aiming for a temperature of 0. If it's 0 and we check the thermometer, we turn it on, so we swirl it around, okay? We check the temperature, all right, swirl it around, and we're looking for 0. Okay, it's dropping, okay. Okay, it's showing 1 degree. I don't know if the camera can show you this, okay. That is acceptable, okay. So we know that this thermometer is acceptable to use. The battery's okay, okay. So we're looking for 0, all right, or within 1 degree either side, -1 or 1 degree. If it's 3 degrees, then, or 4 degrees, okay, or even 2 degrees, that would mean that thermometer is unacceptable use and you would need to throw it out, or you would need to replace the battery in it, okay? So we've tested this one. It's at 1 degree. As we showed you before, it's at 1 degree. It's jumping up a little. There you go, 1 degree. So that's acceptable to use, okay? What we need to do before we use thermometers and after we use thermometers, we have to make sure that they're clean, okay? Hot soapy water, give them a clean, okay, with a scourer, and then wipe them with a towel, and then you could use a sanitizer swab, all right, just to wipe it, okay? And then put it away, put it back into its container, okay? Turn it off, put it back into its container, and put it into the storage where you keep your thermometers, okay? So that's the ice slurry method. Okay, so now we're going to do the boiling method for calibrating the thermometer. So we've got the same thermometer here, okay? We already did the ice method and it was fine. Now we're going to show you how to do the boiling method, okay? So very carefully, okay? So we're handling a hot pot, okay? So you want to just pull it off slightly, okay? All right, and we're going to place the tip into the boiling water, okay? So we know there's a nice rolling boil, okay? And what we're looking for is 100 degrees because that's what water boils at, okay? All right, and again, if it's within, okay, it's getting too hot for me, all right? So what we might do, might just protect my fingers a little bit here, all right? So we're looking for 100 degrees. If it's 99, okay, it's acceptable, all right, which it is. You can see it's reaching 100, okay? So if it's within 1 degree, okay, it's almost perfect, this thermometer. 100 degrees, there we go. Okay, so we know this thermometer is working perfectly fine. Okay, so we've calibrated the thermometer using the boiling method. Okay, so what we have to do is we obviously have to record that in our food safety program documentation. Okay, in calibrations. With thermometers, like I said, having two in the kitchen. Front of house should have one or two as well in case they need to check temperatures of fridges or food or what have you. Okay, so you write who the person was that did the calibration on what date. Okay, you write the recorded temperature down. See, we can write for the ice slurry method. We can write, I think it was 1 degree, and it was acceptable. It passed. Okay. And for the boiling method, we can write 99, well, we can write 100 because we got 100 degrees, so we got a perfect score for that. So in both instances, okay, we know that thermometer is working correctly. You can use either method is fine, but we've done both methods for you today, so you can see the two methods and how they work. Just if you're doing your ice slurry method, make sure that you don't put too much water in it because then it won't be cold enough, okay? It needs to be an ice slurry, okay? That way you'll get a more accurate reading. Just tidying up a little bit, you know, we've got a few bits and pieces of mise en place that can get put away. So we're just wrapping up, dating, labeling kind of stuff, okay? So what we do is we just wrap it up. We can put it into containers like this as well, okay? Nice and neat and tidy. Might get a label or sticker. You might have date label facilities or date label stickers at your place of work. And you just write your name or your initial, write the date it was prepped, okay, what it is. Reggie offcuts. And they can be used for stock or soups or sauces or what have you. But I know I'm going to use these through the week, so there's no point throwing them out. Okay, so just a little bit of cleanliness, a little bit of thought, a little bit of thought behind that. Mise en place in the fridge, along with the other vegetables. Okay, nice and neatly. And we might take some things out. We might wrap this up as well. Okay, everything in its place. Okay, so everything's nice and neat. Again, we can see that the temperature has risen a little bit because the door's been open ajar for a few seconds. Okay, but that should settle down back to under 5 degrees. We're just going to